So, you're at the home center, ready to build something awesome. You grab a stack of 2x4s, feeling all confident and inspired. You get them back to your shop, start measuring and cutting, and then you notice it. That perfect straight board you picked out now looks more like a banana, or a Pringle, or some kind of weird wooden corkscrew. We've all been there. You feel cheated, like you just have the worst luck in the world. But what if I told you it's not bad luck at all? It's actually just a little bit of science. And like any good science problem, there's a repeatable, methodical way to solve it. Today, we're going to dive deep into the secret life of lumber. We'll uncover why that beautiful, straight board at the store can betray you the second you get it home. It all comes down to understanding how wood lives, breathes, and moves. It turns out, wood is a lot more dynamic than most people think, and its journey from the forest to the store shelf is filled with drama, tension, and a whole lot of moisture. By the end of this video, you won't just be randomly grabbing boards and hoping for the best. You'll be a lumber detective, equipped with the knowledge to spot the troublemakers and pick the winners every single time. We're going to turn that frustrating game of chance into a predictable science, ensuring your projects start straight and stay straight. Because the difference between a frustrating build and a masterpiece often starts right here, in the lumber aisle. Let's get into it. Okay, first things first, let's bust a major myth. When you end up with a pile of warped lumber, it's easy to think you just have terrible luck or that the store is selling you defective junk. But the truth is, every single piece of wood wants to warp. It's in its nature. Think about it. A tree is a living organism, a complex structure of fibers designed to transport water from the ground all the way up to its leaves. These fibers are like millions of tiny bundled up straws. When the tree is cut down, that internal structure doesn't just disappear. The wood is still full of moisture, and as that moisture leaves, the tiny fibers shrink and move. It's a fundamental property of wood, not a flaw. This movement is what we call wood movement, and it's the root cause of all warping. It's not a random event. It's a predictable physical reaction to changes in moisture content. So that board isn't warping to spite you. It's just doing what wood does naturally. It's responding to the environment around it, trying to reach a state of equilibrium with the humidity in the air. Understanding this single concept is the first and most important step. We're not fighting against bad luck. We're working with the natural, predictable physics of a fascinating material. And once you know the rules of the game, you can start to win. Now, let's talk about where your lumber comes from, because its journey is a huge part of the story. You might think the 2x4s at your local big box store are from a nearby forest, but that's rarely the case. Most construction lumber is harvested, milled, and kiln-dried in massive industrial-scale operations that could be thousands of miles away. These sawmills are often located in regions with very different climates from yours. The lumber is then bundled up tight in plastic wrap and stored in enormous, climate-controlled warehouses where temperature and humidity are kept incredibly stable. It's like a giant, perfectly controlled wood spa. The problem starts when that lumber leaves its cozy, stable home. It gets loaded onto a truck or a train and shipped across the country, experiencing wild swings in temperature and humidity along the way. Then it arrives at your local store, where it might sit outside in the yard, exposed to rain and sun, or inside a store that's air-conditioned but still has a totally different climate than the warehouse it came from. All this time, the wood is desperately trying to adjust. It's either absorbing or releasing moisture to match its new surroundings, and all that internal movement is just getting started. The board that was perfectly flat in the warehouse is now a ticking time bomb of potential warping. So we know wood moves as it dries, but why doesn't it just shrink uniformly and stay straight? The answer lies in the fact that wood never, ever dries evenly. This uneven drying is what creates the three main types of warp cupping, bowing, and twisting. Let's start with cupping. Imagine a flat sawn board. The growth rings are curved. The side of the board closer to the bark will dry and shrink faster than the side closer to the center of the tree. As the bark side shrinks more, it pulls the edges of the board up, creating a cup shape. It's like a bimetallic strip, but with wood. Next up is bowing, which is a warp along the length of the board. This often happens because one face of the board is exposed to more air and dries faster than the other, causing it to shrink and pull the board into a gentle arc. Twisting or winding is the most frustrating of all. This happens when the grain of the wood isn't straight, it's spiral-shaped, which is common in many trees. As these diagonal fibers shrink, they pull the board in different directions at once, causing the corners to go out of square like a propeller. Each of these warps is a direct result of how the wood grew and how it's losing moisture. So you might have heard the term kiln dried, and well, it sounds pretty official, right? It kind of makes you think the wood is perfectly stable. But here's a critical secret of the lumber industry. There's actually a huge difference between kiln-dried construction lumber and kiln-dried furniture-grade lumber. The 2x4s and other dimensional lumber you find at the big box store are dried for speed and efficiency, not for stability. The goal is just to get the moisture content down to around 15 to 19%, which is considered dry enough for framing a house. This whole process happens relatively quickly and at high temperatures. Furniture-grade hardwood, on the other hand, is treated with much more care. It's dried slowly and carefully in a kiln to a much lower moisture content, typically between 6 and 8%. This is the ideal moisture level for wood that will live inside a climate-controlled home where, the relative humidity is lower. Because construction lumber is left with a higher moisture content, it actually has a lot more potential to move, shrink, and warp once you bring it into your relatively dry garage or workshop. It's not that the kiln drying process failed, it's that it was designed for a completely different purpose. All right, now, for the practical part. How do you actually use this knowledge to pick better boards at the store? Here is my 5-point inspection process. First, and most importantly, sight down the board. Pick it up, hold it at eye level, and look down its length like you're aiming a rifle. Check both the edge and the face for any bowing or crooks. This is the quickest way to spot a problem. Second, check both faces for cupping. Lay the board on the floor or a flat surface if you can. If it rocks like a seesaw, it's cupped. Third, look at the end grain. You want to avoid boards that contain the pith, which is the very center of the tree. The pith is juvenile wood and is incredibly unstable. Also, try to avoid boards with really tight, curved growth rings on one face, as these are the most likely to cup. Fourth, check the ends for cracks or checks. These are signs that the board dried too quickly and is under a lot of internal stress, making it more likely to warp or split later. Finally, if you have two boards that look equally good, pick the lighter one. A lighter board of the same species and size has less moisture, meaning it's more stable and closer to being acclimated. So you've done your due diligence at the store and brought home a beautiful stack of straight-looking boards. Your first instinct might be to start cutting into them right away, but hold on. This is a critical mistake. Remember how that wood has been on a wild journey? It needs time to chill out and get used to its new home, your shop. This process is called acclimation, and it's non-negotiable for good results. Your workshop has its own unique microclimate, its own average temperature and humidity, and the wood needs to reach equilibrium with it. The best way to acclimate lumber is to stack it flat, with small, evenly spaced sticks called stickers between each layer. These stickers allow air to circulate freely around all 6 sides of every board, so they can release or absorb moisture evenly. Don't just lean them against a wall or lay them in a pile on the floor. That will cause them to dry unevenly, and you'll be right back where you started with warped boards. Give them at least a week, or even 2 if you can, to just sit and adjust. This patience will pay off massively by preventing your carefully cut parts from warping after you've milled them. At the end of the day, here's the most important takeaway: warped projects almost always start at the lumber store, not in your shop. All the joinery skills and fancy tools in the world can't easily fix a board that was destined to twist and cup from the moment you bought it. Fighting a badly warped board is an exhausting uphill battle. You lose precious material trying to mill it flat, you struggle to get tight joints, and the final project is often compromised. It's a classic case of garbage in, garbage out. All that frustration can be avoided by being more selective on the front end. Think of the time you spend picking through the lumber pile as the very first step in your project. It's just as important as getting an accurate measurement or making a clean cut. By taking an extra 10 or 15 minutes to carefully inspect each board using the techniques we talked about, you are performing a preemptive strike against wood movement. You're not just buying wood, you're curating your materials. You're setting yourself up for success and a much more enjoyable building experience. Your future self, the one assembling a beautiful flat and square project, will thank you for it. So there you have it. The secret isn't some magical technique or expensive tool. It's just a little bit of knowledge and a lot of intention. Understanding that wood is a natural, dynamic material that responds to its environment is the key. It's not fighting you. It's just being itself. By learning to read the signs, looking at the grain, checking for defects, and most importantly, sighting down the length, you can predict which boards will behave and which ones will cause you headaches. You can finally stop gambling in the lumber aisle and start making informed, scientific choices. And don't forget the crucial step of letting your lumber acclimate in your shop. That patience is what separates the amateurs from the pros. It allows all those internal stresses in the wood to settle down before you make your first cut, ensuring that the straight board you bought stays straight. It's all about working with the wood, not against it. This simple shift in mindset and process will save you countless hours of frustration, wasted material, and disappointing results. It will fundamentally change the way you approach every single project you build from now on. Next time you're standing in front of that giant pile of lumber, you'll see it differently. You won't just see a stack of 2x4s. You'll see a collection of individual stories and possibilities. You'll have the confidence to be picky, to sort through the pile, and to choose only the best stock for your project. If this helps you pick better boards next time, comment "check the board" below. Because great woodworking begins before the first cut. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next build.